Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Are you trying to chop off 8 characters in a I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Knows Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you've heard comes from none other than our man, @1agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
I am in Brooklyn, back in the house. What's up, everybody?
Brooklyn be the place where I serve them things.
And you could find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place. Whoops. You can also, first, you can find your podcast on the Coast of the Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
But you can also find this podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcast, Spotify, or the Coast of the Podcast SoundCloud page. Oh, man.
I'm not sure what's so funny, but please click like, subscribe, and give us all the positive 5-star reviews.
A tweet that I just saw having to do with this week's episode of one of this week's episodes of the Bad Batch.
Okay.
In relation to a character. And which we will get to in a few moments. You can also find us recording every Thursday night, mostly anyway, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, or the daytime series time equivalent of such thing, on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/Nation, and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles, and possibly one other place coming soon.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and give us all the 5-star reviews. Remember to hit that notification button so you know when we are on.
Shout out to Benji Games too. What's up, sir? How's it going? Hope everything is good.
How you doing?
But yeah, we are going to get into this just so we don't have too much wasted time. And start talking about this week's television offerings. And we start off, as we tend to do, with The Bad Batch, which was, as stated in past shows, the 2-part season ending, episodes 15 and 16, titled The Summit and Plan 99.
Okay. And one interesting aspect of this 2-parter is that we have the penultimate episode, lays out the situation in which the Bad Batch find themselves, and the second episode is how they, at least on the surface, escape a particular predicament. But without spoiling too much, we can safely say there is a setup for another season of the Bad Batch.
Yep, indeed. There is. This is going to be kind of a light spoiler in the fact that there is a slight Empire Strikes Back type quality last episode.
Definitely.
But and also at the end of it, we gotta get a revelation that I wasn't I wasn't sure was the case, and wasn't really expected to be the case, but apparently was. There is that. But yeah, without giving too much away, the Bad Batch kind of find themselves in a situation from the last few episodes where they thought they were going in to do one thing and get some unexpected resistance, and from that the dominoes kind of fell.
Right. And I was very disappointed that Carla Tortelli turned into a rat.
but we knew it was coming.
Yeah, but the Carla that we knew cheered would never do that.
So the tweet the tweet that I'm referring to was laughing at was in response to her character Sid, basically, because they were sort of like they basically said like this is my treatment for the character in the next season if I was writing the story, and it was a picture of a handbag.
Of a what?
A
handbag.
handbag.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but if you know what a character
Leather handbag.
Exactly. So if you know what a character species look, I left it a little bit too hard than probably what was necessary, but whatever, I enjoyed it. But yeah, there's really not much else to say about it. We do get a change in status for one of the members of the Bad Batch.
Definitely.
And whether anything comes from that change of status or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's probably the vaguest I can say without saying too much more.
Right. And ultimately, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier when I said the premise and the setup for the next following season was established in the final episode.
Right. And as I was telling Agent 7 before the show, like, yeah, something I thought was going to happen did actually happen, just not to the person that I expected it to. But it's still early. It could still happen. And I think if it's still going the same way I'm thinking it might, yeah, there might be a couple other status changes coming up in the next season. I suspect, but I don't know if it would make sense if that's how they're going to play this out, basically, to play out the Bad Batch's story.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, but we'll get into that as that comes into play, whenever that comes into play. Sure, at some point, I haven't seen anything about if and or when there's going to be a season. Setup is already there. I'm going to assume, there's already some talk and some plans for that to be the case.
Yeah, I think so too.
And see no reason why it wouldn't happen also. That being the case, we can push on to The Mandalorian.
Season 3, Episode 5, Chapter 21 of this Mandalorian story.
Called The Pirate. I'll forego the sound effect on this one.
Yar!
That too, but I meant the normal one normally put in.
Oh.
So again, there is we were talking before the show about this, about kind of how we felt about this episode. Some of which we kind of felt was going to be the case going into or at least that was going to be how the season was going to play itself out. But in the very least one respect, playing out for someone the same and also slightly different than what we expected to happen for a person, or actually a few people at that time, but one in particular, who seemed to be destined a certain way and could be, but then also could change the direction depending on how they continue down that road. So it also felt like, well, it wasn't even felt like, it pretty much was the title character and Baby Yoda / Grogu, pretty much were kind of on the back seat. Not necessarily on the back seat. I mean, they there was some significant time spent on at least one of the characters, but it felt like this episode kind of put them on the side seat, as it were, into relation to what they were trying to get out of get out of the way in this episode. Like, safely say something that I figured was going to be the case from the episode 1 of the season turned out to be the case. Although we haven't seen the ramifications of it just yet, but that's definitely where we're going for the rest of some point in the.
Gotcha. I will say there are a couple of things I wanted to make note of before we moved on to this week's Picard episode, which I have not yet watched.
Okay.
One, there are a few really well done sequences in this episode, right? There is an aerial battle, not a space battle, but an aerial battle. We do have the return of several characters from earlier this season and a surprise return. No, I don't know if no, I think this character did appear earlier in the season. We did have the surprise first appearance of a favorite Rebels character.
Favorite, I don't know about. Yeah, so definitely.
Well, a lot of people have that character as one of their favorites from Rebels.
Sure. Okay.
I will say that there was an extended battle sequence that really made me think of the streets of Mogadishu and Black Hawk Down. Like really, like some of the shots, some of the camera shots, some of the camera angles, some of the moments that they choose to put on film or on digital recording were very much reminiscent of the film Black Hawk Down. And that's all I could think of when I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is, we're in the Moog. We're on the streets of Mogadishu right now.
Or for some of you folks who are more video game inclined, this probably seems like a nice Call of Duty set piece.
That too.
It went down.
That too. I've played a tiny bit of Call of Duty, so I know what Roddykat is referring to. Right. But if you watched, I mean, I can't believe this movie is more than 20 years old now. But Black Hawk Down, go back and watch it. It's not bad. So
yeah. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say this because they put money into all of these, but this seems like there was as practical as some of the stuff was. There's definitely some money behind it to make some shots a little bit more seamless than what they could have been.
Right.
So it was definitely well done on a couple of different accounts, especially with like the air battle part of it. So yeah, it was a good thing. We also got a very unexpected not necessarily cameo, but appearance from an another SNL cast member happens to show up in a part.
Yeah.
In this to an effect, and that in addition to the other Rebels thing were probably the two bigger surprises. Well, actually three, because the whatever happens with the whatever the one character ends up going forth and doing. That was kind of surprised to happen this early, also. But those two definitely were like big smile surprises for me. Episode. And again, the other revelation that we found out that at the end of this episode, that one part was not that big of a surprise. It was like, okay, it was just a matter of finding out when we were going to find out that happened. Actually, weirdly enough, it felt like they could have put that as an end credit scene. I felt like they almost said like, let's put this on as an end credit scene, but then decided not to do it and just tacked it on at the end of the episode, and it still works. But I feel like they could have done that and it would have worked either to this episode. Yeah, that was that for the Mando, Lone Mando and Cub, and now new family.
Yeah. Right. And we'll see how all of this stuff plays out over the remaining episodes, because what had been teased, what had been kind of teased, seems to be about ready to come to fruition. But I think, in my closing, of my part of this conversation on the Mandalorian this week. Like, I found myself, because I ended up watching these back to back last night and then continuing my watch of the Bad Batch into today. I found myself having to. I mean, obviously, I'm watching this late at night. It's probably not conducive to keeping things straight in my head to do that. To watch it so late at night, but I will say that I had just a few issues trying to remember what timeline I was in when watching these shows, because I have to remind myself that Mando is in post post no, I was about to say post Return of the Jedi, but pre sequels.
Well, yeah, so I was still right. So yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. No, I just didn't hear what you said.
Yeah.
So and I have to remember that Bad Batch is pre original trilogy.
Right.
I have to like keep reminding myself like that we're jumping between time periods.
Actually, go so far as to say pre Rogue One.
Right. Which is again pre-original trilogy.
Right. So. But in relation to this,
even
episode,
that exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Even that. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably the one minor gripe I have, and it's a minor one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of been a thing, but like I said, we don't have to worry about after this week.
Right.
So, but yes, that has been a thing I've kind of hit upon myself while we've been watching the past few weeks. It's like, wait, these are two totally different times, but kind of covering some of the same stuff, getting to a place that arguably didn't need to be gone to, but they were going to try to explain it in the first place in one way or the other.
Right.
So therein lies that. And with that, we are going to move on swiftly to Star Trek Picard season 3, episode 7, called Dominion. Which
so I will tell you, I was about to say, hold that thought. I am caught up to this week.
Right.
I did watch last week's episode over the weekend. So I just need to watch this week's episode. So go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean, I still wasn't going to spoil it anyway, because it just came out the day we are recording. So regardless of whether you watched it or not, no one pretty much, I mean, unless anybody watched it the day that we were recording, which is Thursday it came out, not that many people probably seen it. I will just go so far as to say that it was another good episode. We are headed for we got some explanation about a thing that I'm sure folks have been curious about, and the next episode is going to bring things home on another thing and encapsulate what this season is going to generally be about. Like the A and B plots have already kind of blended at this point, but now we're going to get the explanation episode part of it going under but also still adding to the story by adding some elements, one of which came into play. So we get a nice little cameo by a potential possible, a potential Star Trek universe cast related to someone who related to someone's show who's on the cast already, and I guess we've come to find out that person's also going to come up on another episode, as I just saw on Twitter. But like I said, won't give away too much spoilers. But it was interesting to see this character up until a certain that being. But yeah, still the season's still pretty good, and I'm still enjoying it. And I have to admit, this episode had me very much tense, because the way they've talked about this season in general is like, yeah, this is the last hurrah for this crew, and it's felt as though it definitely might be the end of the line for a character or two, which we have already seen for one side character in past episodes. But whether that's going to happen to any of the main TNG group it still remains to be seen, but feels like it still could happen. So, which is why this episode specifically, and all ones coming going forward, which is only what 3 more left, going to be a little bit tense for me because I feel like that's something they're probably going to do. Is like, yeah, somebody might not make it out of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my speculations as to who that might be for reasons that one of which may have become clear in this episode, but we will see if they actually go and do. But yeah, get a chance, check it out. Check it out. That being said, we can push on to we're gonna go into the books of the week. Thank you very much. And we are going to start off with, it's a Strange Academy Finals number 5. What we're starting off with.
Yes, so we are likely nearing the end of this particular limited series, but we may not be at the end of the Strange Academy story. We'll see how this goes because the story written by Scotty Young with art by Humberto Ramos with colors by Edgar Delgado and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles details this month what is a little bit of a fake out because we are celebrating a commencement, but it's not their graduation. That's the big kind of spoiler that is the setup of this issue, right? So I'm willing to spoil that part. No need to really ring the spoiler bell because that is the setup for the story. But what is played out in here and what is revealed in this story was really well done. I thought the story was very effective at laying out how far the kids in Strange Academy have come in their, according to the story, 1 year of being at Strange Academy. And that's as much as I'm willing to spoil.
Right. But I will go so far as to say that some things that's been built up during this volume, and actually I think previous volume, the previous volume kind of comes into play, but not in the way that it was thought to be the case. Part of that still seems kind of a little weird to me, though. The way it plays out and who it plays out with. Because, like, once again, I remember the whole catalyst of how this all started, and that got kind of brought up in this issue, but it still seems kind of like, okay, but 1, we got past that, and 2, it wasn't really that big of a deal in the first place. So that's kind of a thing that I still kind of bumped on even in reading this, but other than that, yeah, it was still a pretty much as good of read as it has been past.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I felt that there was a moment in the story that it's kind of a long time coming, where the teachers acknowledged how far the kids had come, and I thought that was earned, because we have gone through what 2 series now, 3 series of the 3. Yeah,
3.
we've had 2 volumes of Strange Academy, and now we have finals.
Right.
So that felt earned, but at least for the longtime reader.
Oh, totally. Like, this is kind of one of those books, like Agent 79, I always enjoyed reading, and it hasn't really been a terribly bad book, and it's kind of one of those ones like, okay, they could do more with this, they could do more with this, they could do more with this, but if this ends up being whatever comes out of this ends up being the potential end of the series, then, you know, hopefully it'll still go out as good as it came in.
Yeah, hope so. Hope so. All right.
All right.
Yeah, I will say that it's a candidate for Click of the Week for me, just because I enjoyed reading it.
Potentially, yeah, for me also. Speaking of, do we want to go to Iron Man?
Sure. It's one of the other, we only have a few books in common this week. I decided to venture into the world of Image a little bit more this week. So, Invincible Iron Man #4 is written by Jerry Duggan with art by Juan Frigeri, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by our favorite, always our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. When the moon hits your eyes like a big pizza pie. That's amore. So, Duggan has established, or at least is trying to establish, an X-Men villain as a villainous foil to Tony Stark. And the setup makes sense because Tony actually does an excellent job of explaining why it makes sense in this issue.
Right.
If you were not familiar with this character, Fei Long, not the Street Fighter Bruce Lee knockoff, but rather the character who has been a thorn in the X-Men side, especially when it comes to Arakko, we get an explanation from or through Tony's narrative here. It's a bit of it's not necessarily exposition. What it does is really lay out why this character means anything to Tony Stark and why this character should mean something to Tony Stark, because he actually comes out and says, and Duggan, I give Duggan a lot of credit for this. Duggan actually comes out and says, who is this guy? I read his Wikipedia page. It seems like I need to know more. Right. And I really got a kick out of that.
Right. But the other good parts about this, well, there's a couple of good parts about this. And one is in what you're saying, in that, yeah, they set him up that way, but also in comparison to other similar folks that Tony has gone up against in the past that he name checks.
Right. Because it's not the first time this particular scenario has gone down in the pages of Iron Man.
Right. Although,
and he makes the point of making comparisons.
Right. Although there was a line in there that Tony says that I thought, like, unless that got retconned or something like that, that Tony says, like, yeah, XYZ, were smart enough not to use my friends and family, in the course of business, which is not true, especially when it comes to Stain, who was also name checked in the book, because he famously used one of his friends, or one of his friends got caught up. I guess that might be the technicality, but got caught up between their feud before something ended up happening. There is that. The one other good thing that Duggan does in this is that not only is he tying this into the Hickman era of the X-Men with this, but he also tied it back to the Hickman era of the Avengers with that flashback, with a flashback into the beginning of the book.
Yep.
So I was like, okay,
right.
This is
and that's part of what the explanation of Fei Long's motivations are from Tony's perspective. That's where that all comes into play. I really appreciated that.
Right. I was like, okay, that was well done, and it makes sense in that in that relation. I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, I'm with this. So, but yeah, this is definitely a potential click of the week for myself.
Okay.
I love how there was like, let's take this outside, and it was almost like after school the school bell rang, except for it was a different type of bell that was rung before the fight started. But it had that kind of 3:00 in the afternoon fight mode kind of thing up until a certain point. Now where it goes after this, I don't know, because I feel like one person coming out of this fight feels themselves uh, a little bigger than what they probably should.
Right.
Now, whether whether the other person kind of reciprocates that feeling, I don't know, but we'll see what happens in the course of this arc story, or however long this lasts. So far, pretty good.
Alrighty.
So we only got one more. Again, you want to get that one more? Or you just want to hit it? No, wait. That one's not that big. Let's just go ahead and hit the rapids.
Sure. Spinning it up.
I ain't got time to breathe.
All right, first up from me is Ambassadors #1 of 6. The Ambassadors #1 of 6. This is from Image. This is written by Mark Millar. Mark Millar with art and colors by Frank Quitely, an assistant colorist by the name of Vincent Migdian, that is, and letters by Clem Robbins. So the cover of this issue gives away the premise, but I think Miller does an excellent job of setting up a really just great story. And it's just extremely well told. So it's definitely set in a possible reality, because so much of it seems so familiar, but at the same time it involves superpowers. So we know that there are several pieces of intellectual property from recent that are of fairly recent vintage that deal with this, with a fairly realistic setting, but with only a few instances of superpowers. So that is part of the premise here, and I will leave it at that. It is definitely worth a read. Quitely's art in this looks so clean. It is not kind of like that wacky, really hardcore Quitely style that we used to see when he was doing X-Men. It's a little bit more refined. It's a little bit more, it's still his style. You can tell that it's Quitely, but it's just not as heavily, layered with detail. And I think the coloring that he puts in this really does enhance the art. So it's a great first issue. So I would highly recommend that if you're even mildly interested in what the cover says, then give this a shot. It is definitely a candidate for Click of the Week for me. Next up is Philadelphia #29, also from Image. It's written by Rodney Barnes with layout and inks by Jason Sean Alexander, pencils by Herman Aramuspe, background ink assist by Robert Melendrez, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Marshall Dillon. So I did not read all of the credits page. I did not read, or all of the letters page, that is, from the last few issues, but it's almost self-evident that this series seems to be rocketing towards a conclusion with issue number 30, because the body count, and shout out to Ice-T, the body count is in the house. That's a very old hip-hop reference, folks, and a movie reference as well. But the body count has stacked up pretty damn high. A lot of the characters that we have grown familiar with are no longer with us in the story. So it seems very much so that we are coming to the end of the Philadelphia story, and it has been an excellent ride. There are times when I forget who is still alive or who is doing what, but I feel that this series will read incredibly as a collected edition. Last but not least for me is actually, we do have one book in common that's part of our rapid fire group. Clobbering Time number 1 of 5. So there's a 5-issue limited series. It's written by Steve Skroce with art by Steve Skroce. Colors are by Brian Valenza and letters are by VC's Joe Sabino. So this seems to be a limited series that is a little bit like a Marvel 2-in-1 type team-up book involving Benjamin Jacob Grimm, Ma Grimm, and Aunt Petunia's favorite nephew, Ma Grimm's favorite blue-eyed son, and Aunt Petunia's favorite nephew, teaming up with various characters in the Marvel Universe. This first issue involves a team-up with Bruce Banner and his alter ego, the Incredible Hulk. And there is some off-world antics. There's some off-world antics that go on. And, some tongue-in-cheek pop culture references, the nub-nubs. I got a kick out of that. And I leave it to Roddykat to add anything else he wants to add.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much going to say, yeah, they're pretty much setting one thing. Like, I think the next episode, Wolverine.
Yes,
it's. I wanted to say this was a breezy read, but it is, but it is and kind of isn't, because once you kind of get in there a little bit, it's a little bit mumbo jumbo as far as some things that happened and are explained in with what's going on. It's being narrated by this this War Watcher character. So also, hence the Marvel 2-in-1, even though I know that's more of a what if type thing,
right.
But still, it's still within. It was just fun enough to kind of get through, but also it was kind of petering for me at the end. Like it was still kind of fun, but it was like, okay, there's a lot of mumbo jumbo here. I'm not sure if I want to continue to try to read, but it was a one-off story.
Right, and that's what got me through.
Right, unless somehow they're going to tie, which they have done in the past. They're going to, all these other 4 are going to tie together some kind of way, which I kind of doubt. But I'm going to be checking this out definitely, because it's been a minute since we had a Marvel 2-in-1 type situation going on, and hopefully they continue to be.
Okay. Last but not least for me, I'm sorry.
No, never mind. Go ahead.
Last but not least for me is Daredevil number 9. It's written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Manuel Garcia, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by BC's Clayton Cowles. The story of Daredevil under Chip Zdarsky's direction has been pretty good overall, but I think that my frustration with this run and my frustration with some of the characterization of Matthew Murdock and some of his supporting characters in this, it's funny, we've gotten so, if you're of a certain vintage and you've been reading some of these characters for so long, some characterizations just feel off. Some of them feel dead on, but you kind of feel bad for the main characters. And obviously that's the whole point of telling a dramatic story, is that you put the main characters through hell and see how they come through. The hell that Zdarsky and recent writers of Daredevil have decided to put Daredevil through is being, to a certain extent, self-destructive. And that actually frustrates me as a reader, because you want to reach through the panels of the page and shake Matt Murdock, shake him by the neck or by the shoulders and just say, hey, man, what's wrong with you? You shouldn't be doing things this way. But that's obviously the point of the story. So while that is effective and that is well done on Zdarsky's part, it's still frustrating as a longtime fan and reader of the character to see Matt Murdock and Daredevil act in this fashion, self-destructively. We all know, his love for Elektra is in fact very much self-destructive, and the course of their relationship is in fact self-destructive on both sides. So maybe that's part of the arc that Zdarsky's telling here. But it's still, as I said, kind of frustrating overall. I'm still reading it though, so who's being self-destructive now? And with that, I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
I feel like you could say that about a lot of Daredevil's history, because it's not the first time. I haven't been reading it, but this is not the first time he's been put through hell. I feel like most of the writers who write Daredevil kind of put them through some kind of hell.
Exactly, he is Daredevil after all.
Right, and one that's also in certain cases more than others self-destructive.
Right.
So I feel like it's just kind of playing on the same stuff. I'm not reading it, so I don't know no better than I am about that. But I feel like this is pretty much that's pretty much how they've been writing. That's how you write a Daredevil. Like, we can't stop ourselves by writing him like that,
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, I guess what I got used to for a long time was dealing with his Catholic guilt, and there's just a certain quality to the self-destructiveness in this particular run that I guess is just a little off-putting, but to each their own. Everything, that varies with everyone's interpretation of the story so far.
Right. Would anyone want to read a happy Daredevil story?
I think yes. I think Wade had a pretty decent run of happy Daredevil for a little while.
Okay.
So I think it's there. I think it can be done, but it doesn't last, and that's the whole point.
Right. All right. So moving on to my books, we go into pardon. Oh. Dungeons and Dragons. Saturday Morning Adventures Dungeons and Dragons #1 of 3. By IDW. Written by David M. Boer and Sam Maggs, with art by George Cambadius, and letters by Ed Dukeshire. So, yes, folks, this is another one in, I guess, not necessarily a long running series, but they've had, 2, 3 before this, because there was the G.I. Joe one and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Saturday Morning Adventures series. They've all been like 3 to 4 books, telling story, or in the case of the Turtles, like 3 or one-off story. This one seems to be going the G.I. Joe route, and there's going to be one continuous story out of the 3 issues in 3 issues. And if you know anything about the Dungeons and Dragons animated series from the 80s, if you're of a certain vintage, you might, then you know of the plight of the 7 kids that get trapped in D&D land when they took a ride at the amusement park, and as far as we know, officially never got home. They ended up being kind of D&D class, because there were a couple of these folks who were not necessarily D&D classes, like say Diana the Acrobat, which shout out to her because I had a crush on her when I was little. But anywho, but the kind of D&D adjacent kind of like class type folks, or a mixture of some in that way. But these are all teams that get trapped in D&D, and specifically in the Forgotten Realms, according to this book. And I don't know if that's ever been established. Actually, I think that has been established in comic books from probably a decade or 2 ago, that they were Forgotten Realms. But regardless, the crux of this one is their quote unquote leader, Hank, kind of was like, look, I'm sick of all of this. I want to go home. I got a plan. Who's with me? And pretty much most of everybody else is like, nah, I'm good. We're tired. We've been trying to do that, and who's to say that things are back home are going to be any better for us? One of them, who is the thief, Sheila, who normally is the kind of more sheepish one, kind of speaks up for the rest of the group. That also leads them into an adventure that I guess gets them deeper into the land of Dungeons and Dragons, especially where they end up at the end of this. So it's a pretty fast read. If you, again, like myself, if you're a certain convention, you enjoyed that that Saturday morning cartoon with the Dungeon Master and crew. No Avenger yet so far, but I'm sure she's probably going to show up at some point. Matter of fact, from what I've seen of previews, it's definitely going to happen. I think you may enjoy. I have a couple of ideas for Saturday morning adventures, things they should hit off, but I don't know if they're ever going to do it. I'm not going to say on air because they're probably steal them. Next up, though, and if they did, I wouldn't be surprised, but it'd just give me a cut. I mean, it would add it. Next up for myself is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #2, #4 of 5. I should have said 2, #4 of 5, because that would have made it distinguished. This is written by Ryan Parrott, illustrated by Dan Mora, colors by Raul Angulo, and letters by Ed Dusha. So, if you've been keeping up with his book, the Turtles and the Rangers, have been teaming up together again for the, I guess, technically third time, if the live action version is in canon. But in this case, we got Rita and Krang trying to take over. I guess that might have been what happened last time. I don't remember what happened in that crossover. But Rita and Krang trying to take over the Earth, starting with, of course, Angel Grove. And in this particular series, we see the Turtles and the Rangers kind of in certain spaces, swapping places. So, in other words, the Turtles end up morphing, and the Rangers end up getting mutated, in a sense. And this issue in particular is they split up the party, and we got some going to mention the Terradome. The Terradrome, excuse me. Terradome is a Public Enemy. Shout out to them. But going to the Terradrome to kind of to do a thing, and while the rest of the folks, that being Splinter and the Rangers, staying in Angel Grove to defend the city, both kind of have time for it, a good and or bad. There is, of course, a trap in one of those situations, and a surprise from one Krang that the Rangers are pretty much not. They're not the only ones who could co-op the other's tech, let's just say. But it's been a good read so far, and I've been enjoying it. This is the penultimate issue, and looking forward to seeing how the last book for myself is the Avengers Beyond #1 of 5. Written by Derek Landy with pencils by Greg Land. I call him Land and
Nope.
Land.
Nope.
I knew Agent 7
Nope.
was going to do that.
Nope. Nope.
AKA, I'm calling him Land and Land because, there's that. But inks by Jay Lyston, colors by Frank Darmada, and letters by VC's Corey Pettit. So I'm just going to go off my notes with this and say that the simplest oversimplification of the first 2 Secret Wars was given in the beginning of this book by Captain Marvel. And the rest of it is that basically coming off of, I can't remember what the previous book was that Derek Landy wrote that was also a Beyond, but it was basically what led up to this book, and we knew the Beyonder was going. I knew the Beyonder was going to be here in anyway, in one way, shape, or fashion. So basically, come to find out in this issue that the Beyonders are trying to help help the Avengers with a oncoming threat that pretty much he had to deal with. Let's just say the people that made him, that made his people, are pretty much coming back to get what's theirs. So the Beyonder was trying to, behind the scenes kind of get the Avengers and the Earth ready for what's coming, and that was the crux of the previous volume. And this one, he's been fully found out, and now he's pretty much led the bad guys to Earth, um, and it's up to the Avengers to kind of clean up his mess, and so to speak. So seeing the Beyond the Back is one thing, which we have kind of seen a version of them in the Monica Rambeau series. So there's been a couple of times where it's been setting up where the Beyonder was to be back. There's a kind of a question as to whether the Beyonders are still around, but this issue goes to explain something about that, not necessarily where they are, but the relation between them and the Beyonder, and apparently there's always a bigger fish type of situation. So I'm, as Agent
Shout
Sandy
out to
said,
Qui-Gon.
huh?
It's a shout out to Qui-Gon.
Absolutely, which that's actually come up a couple of times in the last couple of weeks with Qui-Gon. So at the end of this, we've come to find out that there's going to be a rematch that's going to come back up in a way. Actually, going back to, let's say, Hickman era, and slight MCU parallel, but definitely more Hickman than MCU. So yeah, I'm gonna see what this is about, because I've already invested myself with the last volume, and coming into this, like I was thinking that they were trying to set up the Beyonder for something, and this might just be it, as opposed to what I was thinking. We'll see how it goes. That's it for me, folks. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week.
So
I don't think we have anything from our colleagues in MCET.
Did not know. Dirt did mention what he was reading, but nothing current. So it's up to us.
Do you have one? Because I'm pretty sure I described my two favorite issues this week. One was The Ambassadors #1, the other being Strange Academy Finals #5. I think I'm going to choose the new #1 issue this week, but Strange Academy Finals #5 was a really strong book. So my choice is The Ambassadors #1 of 6 from Image.
I don't know. I'm definitely, Strange Academy is definitely one of them, and Invincible Iron Man is the other for me. The Rangers Turtles thing is also pretty good, and the Dungeons and Dragons also pretty good. But I think the stronger one for me, and the one I'm probably going to go with, is going to be, and I didn't think I was actually going to say that, but Invincible Iron Man #4, when I'm going. And with that, actually there was and I think I know why this is tipping me off, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, but Tony Stark almost pulls off a spirit bomb.
Yeah, I did see that.
So I was like, okay. In addition to everything else, this issue simply was. I'm like, that was pretty good. So with that, folks, that is our books of the week. We're going to go into the news section, but first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron, fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home. With Blue Apron, always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. Place your first order with $30 off. And to help keep our show free for you. Go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today. Now we get into the news.
And we get into the cinematic news as we about this time, starting off with Meet Coyote, the newest superhero in the Marvel Studios' What If. So I believe we knew that there was going to be a second season of Marvel's What If on Disney Plus. Apparently, we're going to have some new characters show up, and some very brand new characters new to the Marvel Universe, apparently, to show up in addition to, such as this one. If you're watching the video version, you can see the image of Coyote, who is a young Mohawk woman on a quest to discover her power, according to this article. And her power, it seems, comes from the Tesseract, aka the Cosmic Cube. Those of you of a certain vintage. And it says here that what if the Tesseract fell to Earth and landed in the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy before the colonization of America. I apologize if I butchered that. I did. That's where this new character comes from. And there is no word when we see this season 2 or character, but definitely know that they're coming. Cool.
Next up, let's see here. After a 15-year hiatus from Marvel Cinematic Universe, guess what, folks? Guess what? Go away, ads. Go away. Such a pain. Such a pain. The Hollywood Reporter revealed this week that Liv Tyler, daughter of lead singer of Aerosmith, Steven Tyler, is set to return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the role of Betty Ross. Goodness gracious. I guess, Tim, a certain site needs to pay certain writers because this ad blocker thing is getting to be annoying.
And they all have them, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's them or the other one also got a bunch of.
Yeah, look at that. So, but bottom line is Liv Tyler is returning to the MCU in Captain America: The New World Order as Betty Ross. It was revealed by the, not repealed because that's a completely different world, but revealed by the Hollywood Reporter this week. Next up.
Well, apparently they're not the only one going to come back in that movie. Sounds like basically what they kind of set up in that 2008 Incredible Hulk movie, coming back with the dude that played this leader is also going to be in this. Yeah, and I don't know if it says it here. Yeah, I know I saw another article that said it's Liv Tyler.
Yeah, it does say it. I was about to say it does say here Tim Blake Nelson, Samuel Stearns.
Yeah, I believe we'll probably more likely get Harrison Ford's Thunderbolt Ross likely.
Yeah, more. I was about to say I thought it was definite now.
Yeah, I think. It doesn't say here, but yeah. Well, it says here Thunderbolt Ross, but so I'm going to assume that that is the case. So Captain America: New World Order. It's basically, as other articles have been saying, it's pretty much Incredible Hulk 2. with Sam taking, or at least I've seen online people saying that Sam's taking the backseat to the Incredible Hulk. I'm like, I guess, but now it sounds like the leader's going to be who Sam is going after. which is still kind of weird. But I mean, it's not the first time Marvel, the MCU has blended a couple of
Right.
Anywho, so this has been updated. The original story is that Marvel's Secret Invasion gets a summer 23 premiere date, but apparently, and I remember seeing this listed on Disney Plus, but I didn't say anything about it because I thought it was weird that the page was up kind of prematurely. But Disney Plus has delisted Secret Invasion, leading many to believe that the release date was either unveiled too early or the show has been delayed. According to the article, neither Disney nor Marvel Studios has addressed the change. And the original story was that Secret Invasion with Samuel L. Jackson was supposedly, or is supposedly, coming to the service on June 21st of. Like I said, I thought it was weird when not seeing anything else but that page show up on Disney Plus. I guess they took it down now. Next up.
Okay. So, Daredevil Born Again star Vincent D'Onofrio confirms that a second season of the Disney Plus revival show is already under development. What I'm referring to is apparently, while speaking with Newsweek, D'Onofrio, kind of let that slip, and apparently the Marvel snipers didn't take action. They held their fire.
I mean, it's the Kingpin. What are they going to do?
Right. I mean, I guess they're telling a long form story because there are a lot of episodes in this first season.
Right. Which I'm trying to remember. I still keep threatening to go back and watch the if Daredevil and the rest of those shows if they're still up on Netflix before I get that up. But I mean, it's probably not worth it. But next up, though, speaking of Daredevil, apparently Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin suits up for first photo. So there's been some set photos from the site, from the location, I guess, showing D'Onofrio in his Kingpin suit. It's not purple. Like reference before, but we'll talk about that. And yeah, it also says what Agent 70 just said, and that yeah, it's going to be episodes that are being filmed. And the working title is called Out the Kitchen, which I think we have said before.
Right.
And expected to last. Filming is expected to last until December 2023. Article. This is stuff that came off of Reddit. So next up.
Yeah, shout out to at Matt Wang 97, friend of the show, friend of Agent _70, who's asked whether or not we've spoken about the new Stingray Disney Plus series on Twitter just now. We have not, but thank you for that, as always. Next up, the road to recovery continues for Hawkeye and Mayor of Kingstown star Jeremy Renner, who was involved in a terrible snowplow accident at the beginning of 2023, which resulted in some serious injuries, surgery, and a lot of time in the hospital. Now, a few months removed from that, Renner is working very hard to get back to normal, and he's updated fans on social media along the way. This week, the actor posted a new video of him finally getting some real steps in on a treadmill. Good for him.
Yeah, apparently he was using some new technique, physical therapy technique. So not too many people get to use. Good on them for getting that recovery in. Next up. Gonna bite me that behind one of these days. But Star Wars acolytes Jodie Turner-Smith reveals new details about their character. So it says here that the Acolyte series is headed to Disney Plus, which we know. There's some new details about her character, which on the show, which is set in the High Republic era. She was speaking to comicbook.com about her new film, Murder Mystery 2. Turner Smith also touched on what it was like filming a television show in the Star Wars universe for Disney Plus. And there's a quote here from that, which I won't say, but she's basically like, "Oh, you got money." That's paraphrasing of that. Shout out to Quinta Brunson. But she also says here that it feels like you're in a different show, different movie, whatever it is. It's very cool and it's heroic. And there's another piece. There's another part where she was talking to Collider about what the show sets apart from her past work, citing that it's a darker tone. And that the subject matter is obviously different, but and that's going to be a little darker than what you. That's me. Next up,
Lucasfilm has just shared 3 short films set in the world of Star Wars: Young Jedi Adventures, which is set to debut on Disney Plus and Disney Junior this May 4th. The kid-friendly animated show takes place during the era of the High Republic and features Jedi younglings, led by Yoda himself, learning the ways of the Force and having adventures across the galaxy. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming they're taking from the book, which did the exact same thing. But just down to a little bit. And of course, it's coming out on May the 4th.
Of course.
The Muppets Mayhem teases a unique rock and roll adventure. So apparently, I can't remember if we talked about this before, but this particular show focuses more on the Electric Mayhem, which is the band of the Muppets, led by Dr. T with Animal and Janice, XYZ, and everybody else, with those folks, as opposed to following Kermit and folks. Kermit will show up on the show. So it says here that yes, the show will follow the band as they record their first album with the help of human characters played by Lily Singh, as Nora, an aspiring record producer, Sarah Chowdhury as Nora's sister, and Taj Mowry as the Electric Mayhem's #1 fan. So yeah, that's pretty much that. I don't know if it says when this show. No, it does not. But it says coming very soon, which should be coming very soon. Next up.
In what has to be said to be disappointing news, Jonathan Majors was arraigned. The actor Jonathan Majors was arraigned this past Sunday on several assault and harassment charges, according to the Manhattan DA's office. That is New York, New York. In the complaint, the unnamed female accuser claims he basically assaulted her, but these are misdemeanor and violations. So these are not, these are not the most serious, but they're still fairly serious. So ultimately, it's it's disappointing to hear. More details of this are going to come out. Obviously, there are multiple sides to the story, so we will see how this develops.
Yeah, despite what you just said about how major or whatever it is, there are people, of course, as this came out, talking about it as if like he's Hitler, basically.
Well,
I mean,
nobody
that's me being hyperbolic, but there's but there are of course, usually when something like this comes out, there are people gonna come out to work and say a whole lot of stuff, whether about this and that, and he shouldn't be, he shouldn't have any more roles and this and another. They're gonna recast and this and another and blah blah blah. Yickety smackety and that.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that that obviously remains a possibility, right? Because nobody likes that kind of publicity, but at the same time, misdemeanor assault and harassment, that's basically punching somebody in the face. Obviously nobody likes that it's that it's a person of the opposite sex, so that changes things a little bit.
Right, but my point kind of being is like there has been more said about this case and him than say Ezra Miller.
Yeah, well, fuck Ezra Miller.
I mean, I agree with you on that, but my point still stands.
I understand. I do. I'm just looking at it purely from reading the charges. I'm like, that's literally
right.
A mild physical altercation. Obviously, I don't want to downplay what could be, what was a bad situation and make light of it.
Right, and from what I've seen reported and whatnot, I think after that happened, he was the one that called the police.
Well,
to the person,
but we will find out more, if anything, if whether or not these charges stick. But having seen charges like this before, my point being that if you get into an altercation with anybody, that's basically misdemeanor assault in New York City.
Sure, but if you are of a celebrity of some note and sometimes race, kind of goes different from my thing. Whether
right. Well, that I understand. I'm looking at it purely from what's being charged.
Agreed.
So what I have to make clear to hold on, let me finish.
No, I'm done.
You have to make clear to everybody that that's essentially what gets charged. Anytime somebody puts their hands on somebody and there's an alleged injury, this is what gets charged.
Right.
So that's all.
Yeah,
it's not like I said, I don't want to necessarily downplay it because of some of the other circumstances, but just to be clear.
I mean, we'll be kind of looking at it, but I'm not gonna sit here and like here's every story on it. We're not gonna do that. So,
right.
Because that's kind of granted, we have done it in certain cases before, but not anyway.
Exactly. I always imagine myself not quite losing my shit and knocking somebody the hell out, and that's what I'd be charged with.
Right.
Exactly what I'd be charged with.
That's me. Disney absorbs Marvel Entertainment amid layoffs and dismisses Chairman Ike Perlmutter. Good.
I was gonna say, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you on your way out.
Indeed. So it says here that Disney's cost-cutting measures have reached the top echelons of the company. Ike Perlmutter has been laid off as his division, which is separate from Marvel Studios, is absorbed into other units of Disney. Along with Perlmutter, Marvel Entertainment's co-president Rob Steffens and chief counsel John Turretson were also dismissed. Dan Buckley, president of the division, is staying and will report to Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige. So it says here that the 80-year-old Perlmutter still owns a considerable share of Disney stock, and it says was a descendant of activist and activist investor. I feel like people know about what Perlmutter's deal is at this point, including being kind of a conservative. I'll leave it at that. Not being whatever, but. I think that's pretty much that. So while he still he's not lacking for much, even even though he got let go, he's still kind of coming away with stuff, unless somebody's gonna buy him out, which I don't know if happen, because like it says, owns a considerable stock share. Let's see how that works out. Next up.
Amazon Studios has officially recruited former Marvel Comics editor-in-chief Joe Quesada to lead future comic book adaptations for the streaming giant. Quesada will be in charge of overseeing various film and television adaptations with a focus on existing and new comic book properties. Okay.
Why not?
Good for him.
Yeah, right? Anyway. The Looney Tunes transform was a device to celebrate Warner Brothers' 100th anniversary. So, it looks like this article is talking with Josh Heckbarth, the SVP of Animation Franchise Development of Warner Brothers, excuse me, different company, to find out what Acme Fool's about. I guess that is the show that this thing is coming under. It says here that there's an inspiration behind the upcoming Wizard of Oz and Looney Tunes mashup, which you can see a video of article, and if you go to the show notes, you can check out the article for yourself. It appears that it's going to be the first of 4 30-second custom shorts debuting Mondays across the company's social medias, starting actually this past Monday. So that's out there, probably on the YouTubes and whatnot. In fact, specifically on the YouTube, just like on WB Kids. Doesn't say what else they're getting into, but the rest of the article is care about the short part. Go get in and click on that.
Next up, via Deadline, the showrunner of Riverdale speaks in this article about the season 7 premiere and hints that characters will face off against society itself for a 1950s set final installment. So with a bit of time travel here, the characters of this Riverdale adaptation have found themselves transported to the 1950s, which is an era that is closely associated with Archie comics. And interestingly, this adaptation is very modern. And so these very modern characters, including characters of color and of different sexual orientations, find themselves in the 1950s, where a lot of these folks may not be welcome.
Yeah,
and that's part of the storytelling fabric.
It'll be curious to see how the treatment of that stuff goes. I have not watched much of Riverdale, much less kept up with anything going on. I heard it got kind of crazy, in its own way. This is
time travel.
Right.
Now they've done time travel. So you know what? It's pretty crazy already.
Right. And I think they did superheroes already because because there was that last season or last where they kind of did that. They've kind of been they've been doing some things apparently. Let's see. Original Power Rangers star debunks reunion rumors. So, which I'm going to put it here that I don't know if it's on this article or not, because that was the original reason why I brought this up, was that there is there's a trailer for the upcoming Power Rangers special on Netflix, and it's pretty cool. So if you have a chance to check that out, should. Notably absent, which we've talked about before, is Amy Jo Johnson, and of course the favorite Frank, even though they filmed it before he passed, but he opted not to be a part of the special before he passed. But I'm pretty sure they'll probably contribute to him itself. But it says here in a tweet on March 26th, Amy Jo Johnson explained away the rumors that have arisen in the wake of the news that she would not be appearing in the upcoming Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always Netflix special. Johnson implored fans to, quote, stop saying I didn't do the reunion because of money. Simply not true. She also noted that Jason David Frank and herself chose not to do it for reasons of their own. And again, as I said, before he passed. So there is that. I don't think she goes into the actual reason, and she probably doesn't necessarily need a reason to. You want to do it, you want to do it. But yeah, you can see that there's the tweet here that pretty much goes which may or may not matter. But anyway, like I said, going back to the original thought of mine, check out the trailer for the special. It's pretty good from what I've seen, or from what I've seen of the trailer. Next up.
Next up, so this is spoilers for Fast X coming out later this year, in only a few months actually. And we find out that Brie Larson spilled the beans on the character that she is playing in the film to Total Film Magazine. We will not reveal it here now.
Yeah, just unless you're looking at the video version and possibly site link. Actually, it still kind of doesn't, but never mind. So yeah, I assume you already know. You read this, right? And saw who she's playing.
Yeah, I skipped it. Yeah, it didn't matter to me, but I'd rather not spill it for anyone who doesn't.
No. Yeah, I agree with you there. But I also kind of find it funny. It was like, yeah, well, she don't have Marvel snipers to deal with, so she could kind of say
exactly. The fast level of secrecy is nothing close to the Marvel level of secrecy.
Right, more like they play kind of fast and loose.
No.
But yeah, and I guess from reading it, I guess it's not that big of a surprise who she's. Well, I mean, it is a surprise who she's playing, but also, okay, sure, why not? That's the way I read it. But anywho, John Wick Chapter 4, as his article says, unloads an impressive $29.4 million on the opening day, which was, of course, the day both Agent 70 and I went to go see the movie.
Yep.
Just saying. It says here that it is the franchise's best opening weekend at the domestic box office, eyeing a finish that could stretch north of $70 million. Granted, it's been a few days away from that, so I'm pretty sure they have an actual total for that. But pull this on.
Right. I mean, we could always, like double check Box Office Mojo or something.
Yeah, for certain.
Find out.
I mean, if you want to, go for it. But actually, no, you may not even have to, because I'm sure one of these next articles might.
No, I've got it.
Okay. Well, let me read this real quick.
Weekend, I was about to say through the weekend, it did hit the number. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. I'm surprised by that. I just found out that my brother has never seen any of those movies. And I was like, what?
Wow.
So I was like, okay, we're going to watch it. Well, granted, he's been here all week and he's leaving tomorrow, but we did get a chance to do that. I was like, doggone it, we're going to. If you want to borrow him, or you want me to sit you down and at least watch the first one, then we can go ahead and do that and get it out of the way. He's just like behind. Although he saw Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumanium. But anyway, that's beside the point. It was kind of funny. But to close this off, it says here that the 29.4 million was the opening day from 3,855 locations, and the gross that includes 8.9 million in Thursday. I guess they're saying Friday, not Thursday. Well, they said, yeah. Technically, it was because Thursday was. It doesn't really matter. It made a lot of money and still good. Keep pushing. Next up,
John Wick Chapter 4 director Chad Stahelski revealed the inspiration, specifically a video game inspiration for a pretty big scene in the movie. And it's not what everyone thought it was. I'm not a gamer. And apparently the obvious reference was to Hotline Miami, but apparently Stahelski cited a totally different game when speaking to Slash Film, which was the game he referenced is a lesser known independent title known as Hong Kong Massacre. I'm like, okay, that's cool. As Roddykat and I talked about in last week's episode, there were definitely hints of a video game influence in that scene. Heavily, it just wasn't clear which video game. So he's come out and said it.
Yeah, I actually didn't think about Hotline Miami at the time either, but I can definitely see it because I have played the game, and it definitely has that kind of energy. Hong Kong Massacre is a game that I've heard about, but I don't think I've ever played, so that's got one on me. That one. But yeah, play Hotline Miami is good. Anywho's, um, oh, I didn't see. I don't know if you saw this. Shout out to Matt Wang 97, who apparently showed up in YouTube chat talking about no love for the Beyonder. And also Go Yankees, which that was cool.
Oh, oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Come on. I mean,
Yeah, but man, your mother brought you up wrong. That's what it is.
Hey, boo! It was pretty terrible. It was bad. It was awful. I was scared. Come away.
We love Matt Wang. But yes. Next story though.
oh, we up to the next story?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Wait, did you do the ballerina one?
Yeah, no, you do. This is you.
Oh, okay. So, John Woo has a new movie coming out, The
Wait.
Silent Night, actually, and apparently the producer of John Wick 4, Erica Lee, has spoken about it, and when we might get the first trailer. The movie actually wrapped filming almost a year ago, which suggests it had a long post-production phase. So let's see. Apparently the movie has has mostly no dialogue. Joel Kinnaman stars, and where is this trailer?
There is one.
By summer. That's what the article states, that by summer we will have a trailer for Silent Night.
Shout out to Rick Flag getting some work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, going back to the previous story, John Wick spinoff Mandalorian gets a 2024 release window date. Says here that Joe Drake revealed that the studio's target release window for the upcoming spinoff is going to be spring or summer of 2024. And that production since November 20.
Do you want to take the next story?
Sure, why not? There's going to be a new Star Wars. There's going to be a new Star Trek show. There's going to be a new Star Trek series that is going into production, and that's going to come out in 2024 at Paramount Plus, and it is called Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Is it going to be based off the game? Who's to say? Because I don't think it says here. But regardless, the series was announced today as of this recording, apparently, and the series will follow the adventures of a new class of Starfleet cadets as they come of age in one of the most legendary places in the galaxy. It's, of course, being produced by CBS Studios and will begin production in 2024. So yeah. Will introduce us to a young group of cadets who come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism under the watchful and demanding eyes of the instructions. They will discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blooming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both the Academy and the Federation itself, because that's how it always happens. I am curious as of a time frame and possibly who might be. Also, given, well, actually, I don't think that was an Academy Center. Never mind, because I was about to, given a previous episode of Star Trek Picard, I was like, wait, when does this take? Is it taking place before that or after that? But I don't think that has anything to do with it. No, I don't think anybody that I would want to be involved But hey, that's good news for that. No word on whether it's being based off of the video game, the old video game either. Oh well. Next up, we are in Anime Corner.
I was about to say, wait, is this Netflix
Yeah,
Ultraman series
kinda is.
anime?
Sure, we'll go with it. It's in that style, yes. I mean, and
Oh,
it
right.
is technically because of Ultraman Sentai stuff.
Alrighty. So, officially titled Ultraman Final, the final season of Netflix's Ultraman anime series has been announced for release on Netflix's streaming service around the world beginning on May 11th. Okay.
Yeah, I need to catch up with this. I watched the first couple episodes and it was pretty good, but I never did kind of go back to it. I think I saw a character get suplexed. I was like, okay, what are we doing here? But yeah. So I can't remember how many. I guess final season, but I guess it was like I don't know how many pre. Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War shares new core to teaser. So July 2023 will mark the return of Ichigo Kurosaki, and of course, fans are eager to see what Bleach has in store for the next core. I I don't know when core started being a substitute for part or whatever the case may be, but I'm not sure if I like it. Either way, there's a new promo has gone live teasing the comeback. It's attached to this article, and the clip is entitled "Synergy Special Edition," which highlights some of the top moments that has been in Bleach Thousand Year Blood War so far. So if you've been keeping up with that, I'm sure you will know. Next up.
Right. So, that Ultraman series has had 2 previous seasons. So, this
Okay.
upcoming final season is the 3rd season.
Okay, thanks.
Next up, Sailor Moon anime is coming back for a new take on Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon's final battle, and fans have gotten a new look at what to expect from the Sailor Moon anime's next grand finale with the newest trailer for Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon Cosmos, the movie. You can watch it at this link.
Uh, it says here that Cosmos will be releasing across 2 feature films, with the first hitting in Japan on June 9th and released 30th. Chainsaw Man, Oni Thunderguard's Tale animated series complete at Annecy, or Annecy, I guess. This year's Annecy International Animation Film Festival announced on Thursday that the aforementioned Chainsaw Man manga is competing in the TV films category. Specifically, the first episode is screening in competition. It says House's Oni Thunderguard's Tale CGI animated series is also competing in the same category with the episode Demon Moon Rise. Let's see. This year's Annecy will take place from June 11th to the 17th in the French town of the same name. And it is a film festival that has been around since. Next up.
Okay. So, Crunchyroll launches free to watch series ahead of the spring season. And according to Crunchyroll, it has added a total of 7 series to its free to watch catalog. These titles include episodes, OVAs, and even OADs. You can check out the full list right here. It's Birdie Wing Season 1, Dr. Stone Seasons 1 and 2, plus Ryusui Special Episode, Kuma 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 Bear Season 1, Mix Season 1, Ranking of Kings Season 1, The Ancient Magnus's Bride Season 1, plus OVAs and OADs, and Tonikawa Over the Moon for You Season 1. So it's a mix of different types of shows.
And I can confirm this for myself, unfortunately, because I went to Crunchyroll the other night to catch up on some stuff and realized that I had let my Crunchyroll account lapse.
Oh no!
Which is actually probably a good thing, because it's actually a good thing, except for the fact that as Agents of 7 and I kind of had talked about one other time previously, I think they got rid of the yearly subscription thing. So the only other way you can do it is if you buy a gift card yearly amount to get that.
Right.
So that, well, let me phrase that. Here in the States, they stopped doing the yearly. Apparently, you can, if you're elsewhere, price.
Right. I bought I bought a year's worth of a gift subscription, so
Right.
I remember that part.
Right. So that kind of sucks because, and I feel like I've been there long enough to be grandfathered into the yearly thing, but I didn't, for some strange reason, still had me on monthly. Hard to change. That sucks for my. Couldn't take advantage of the grandfather. Anyway, we're getting into the comic book section.
Meanwhile, the Hall of Justice.
The Avengers and X-Men's 60-year legacies come alive in new variant covers by Alex Ross. Which, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to check out Alex Ross's variant cover for this week's Invincible Iron Man #4, that's a pretty good mixtape cover, I will say. Anywho, Marvel Comics is proud to honor 60 awe-inspiring years of the Avengers and the X-Men this year. In August, starting August, Alex Ross will grace the celebration with his acclaimed artwork. So, oh yes, and we also
You seen this? Have you seen these?
what? The variant covers?
Images? Yeah.
I say the first one. I saw the first one, yes. Or part of the first one, because I think I saw it on his Twitter or something.
Right. So I grabbed both. I grabbed images of both of them and made them wallpapers on my desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been studying the images, and I've always been a fan of Alex Ross. I don't know if I really like the Avengers one, believe it or not, because I don't know if I'm just being thrown off by the like it's just not, there's I'm having some trouble with some of the perspective, but that's just me.
Gotcha.
When you have a chance to take a look at it in full, you'll see what I mean.
No,
you might see what I mean.
Right. Well, I kind of get it. I'm looking at if you're watching the video version, you can also see the Avengers cover he's speaking about right here.
Right. Like the perspective on some of the characters, like the depth of them, because obviously there's a foreground and a background that you're dealing with. You know what it is at the end of the day, you come to appreciate the talent that George Perez had in creating like those gigantic group shots, and you could clearly see like who's bigger than the other people, and how they're composed, not just the art wise, but by the layout. And I'm wondering if maybe, Alex Ross could have used a couple of pointers from George Perez, but unfortunately he is now passed. The X-Men cover, I liked his thought and I liked his execution because I read an article. Where's this article from that you're citing?
Marvel.com.
Okay. Was there an interview in there with him?
Not in this one, no.
Right. I think there was on another website that had an interview with Alex Ross, and he mentioned that the X-Men cover that he did is an homage to the X-Men #1 cover by Jim Lee, and it captures a moment, maybe a few seconds after the initial image that we see in that cover, and that's what he portrays. And I like that idea, that this is what these characters are doing like a few seconds later. So I thought that was a nice way to homage the original cover, which obviously sold so many issues.
Right. I think so. I like the Avengers one, but I kind of see what you're talking about, and I guess I kind of wonder if it wasn't indeed a difference in like art style that would have probably made of the difference. Because with his like painter style, like I can see that Linda kind of be perspective off. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just that like some of the depth of the characters is just kind of missing to me. Because they're doing more action more actiony things as opposed to like standing. That's one of the reasons why I love the mural that he did, the Marvel mural.
Right.
That like that was a desktop background of mine for a long time. But with these with the characters kind of in action and action poses, it makes I wanted to say it poses a different challenge for an artist. So
Right.
anyway, moving on. Spider-Verse covers turn Captain America, Wolverine, and more into Spider-Man variants. This article is brought to us by our very own at TimDog98 over at comicbook.com. So these are Spider-Verse variant covers that are coming out. One of these covers will land on Amazing Spider-Man number 26, billed as the most shocking issue of Amazing Spider-Man in 50 years, Oy Zeb Wells. So it will have a total of 25 versions of a spider hero represented during the Spider-Verse cover program. Okay.
Jeez. That's a lot. Not surprising, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
I was gonna go back to that last article for a second, but we'll talk about that later. You kind of find yourself looking through to seeing who's represented and who's not. That's a cover. Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti conceive a grand new design for the Marvel Universe in G.O.D.S. Gods. Almost make me want to cite some Wu-Tang, but not doing that here.
I was about to say, or Run DMC.
Sure. So apparently this was first teased last year at San Diego Comic-Con, but the time has come to finally reveal what Jonathan Hickman and artist Valerio have planned for Marvel Comics. This fall, the forces at the heart of the Marvel Universe will be stunningly reimagined and evolved in a new series for two of industry minds. You can tell this is from Marvel.com. We've already talked about what Hickman has done with the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and currently the X-Men, or I guess recently the X-Men, not currently. But Gods will mark his most ambitious undertaking to date. I don't know, those last couple. I don't know, those last come to kind of up there. But anyway, basically reshaping Marvel's pantheon of cosmic beings and the entities behind the very fabric of reality. I'm kind of wondering if that's not playing into why Beyonder is suddenly back in. But apparently we will meet Wynn, who's a mysterious player in a war that exists outside of the order that we know, and a vital member of the eons-old hierarchy that includes omnipotent rulers of the universe such as Eternity, Infinity, and the Living Tribunal. He meets up with Doctor Strange and hints at something bigger, and there is a trailer that is attached to this out. Pretty much goes the same thing. Did you watch the trailer? Or you just read about it?
I just read about it.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's not a bad trailer. I don't know, it's still kind of weird to see trailers for books, but
Exactly. Okay. That's why I didn't watch it.
Yeah, but it's not a bad. It's kind of what that that motion comic type situation. So it is what it is. Next up, Blade is back. So announced exclusively by Polygon. Blade launches a new book this summer, the summer of 2023, from writer and former guest of the show, Brian Hill, and artist Elena Casagrande. The new ongoing series will find Eric Brooks, aka Blade, struggling to deal with the supernatural underworld after he accidentally awakens an ancient evil, Mum-Ra, the ever-living. I'm kidding. Nice.
Oh boy. So yeah, that's cool that they're bringing Blade back in a new book.
Yeah, indeed. I guess I feel like it's kind of also expected. One, because I know they're working on that new movie with with Mahershala Ali, and two, Bloodline is out, and he's been in Moonlight. So, kind of wondered if they kind of set him to kind of have his own, and he's been with the Avengers. Kind of whenever they kind of been setting him come back out.
Right.
How about the sequel to Hong Kong Massacre, Macau Mayhem? Did you play that? That actually, I don't remember. I didn't play Hong Kong Massacre, Matt, so I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Anything about it. Also, I'm thinking like, wait, are you messing with me? Is that actual, or is that actual? Is that an actual thing?
Never. I was about to say that's always a possibility.
Right. I mean, that sounds like a thing that could be the case. So I don't know if he's actually messing with me or not, or if that's actually real, because it could go other ways. Could go either way. Anyway, DC finally settles which Batgirl is the best fighter. This is a spoiler for Harley Quinn, the animated series Legend of Bats #2, which possibly means it's not in this canon. And it also says here that DC has confirmed in the story that it is outside that it is outside the main universe. So there you go. You know what? It's a spoiler, but I feel like if you know your Batgirls, you probably can figure out who it is. Because it's probably the one you think. Unless you like the other one. Next up.
Last but not least, we have a little video game news. Multiverses, the multiplayer platform fighting game from Warner Brothers and Player First Games, is being pulled from digital stores on April 4th and will go offline, meaning it will become largely unplayable in June. The developer announced Monday that it's pausing updates and taking the game offline for a relaunch of Multiverses, which is targeted for early 2024. So, they're characterizing it as a temporary closure of Multiverses. Okay.
Yeah, I actually had kind of sort of forgotten about that game because it kind of had a big buzz, and I guess people are still playing it, but and I think they did say it was supposed to be like a beta or something like that, but I didn't think they would shut it down and bring it back later. But
okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, I suppose. And that, folks, is the end of the news, and therein leads us into our last ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is for Amazon. Help keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through cspn.us. Do it today.
I was looking at that G.O.D.S article while you were doing that thing, and said something about Hickman said he wrote 2 series Bibles, one of which being House of X and the other one being for Gods, and I kind of want to see both of them, because we know how Hoxpox came out, but I want to see his thought patterns with how we went about it. So, but I guess we may or may not ever. Regardless, that brings us to the end of this here show, folks. Been a good one. What can I say? It's been a good run. I'm sorry. We're not going in. But we will definitely be back next week. Same shenanigans. One less show to talk about.
Yes, no more. Yeah, Bad Batch has ended its second season.
Yep. But we still have Mandalorian and the rest of Star Trek Picard season 3. So, and unless something else happens to come up, which I wouldn't be surprised if that does happen that we're not thinking about at this point. Stay tuned for that. Neither one of us still didn't go see that Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Right, we'll see. I was about to say we'll see if we get around to it this weekend. I don't have it on my schedule, but you never know.
Yeah, it could happen. As the Hulk said this week, I could eat. Which is a weird thing. But anyway, that being said, I am Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. Find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_dirt on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com. Excuse me, PopCultureNet.com and not I was right the first time. Doesn't matter. And all the umbrella sites they're in. And last but not least, never least, the Osiris of this ish. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter. You can also find him at CBCron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. The Kliq Nation on Twitter. That's TKLIQ. And thekliqnation.com. But of course, you can definitely find him over on comicbook.com as Timothy Adams writing his face. I'm pretty sure no one said it, but somebody would be like, well, you said go over there, but I don't see no Tim Dog 98 on comicbook.com.
Ah!
Just to keep that out of the way. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave us all the 5-star positive reviews.
You can also find this recording every Thursday night, mostly every Thursday night, 9:30-ish, on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/nation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you know when we are online.
Indeed. Also shout out to again one Matt Wayne 97 who's still in the audience and says Agent 70 is definitely a changeling.
Oh, am I going to revert to Goop in a second?
Oh gosh, no. Maybe you're one of those new enhanced ones. Who knows?
Right.
But also says Roddykat is definitely going to watch the D&D movie via his crystal ball. He is a level 5 magic user. You're giving me a lot more credit than I deserve on that one. I mean, maybe level 3, but 5 I'm still working up. But I appreciate it nonetheless. And also, you're possibly right. The crystal ball is going to be 3 magic letters. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. 1.
Almost over, y'all. Give it. I feel it's back. Lights out.
Uh-oh.